know it's pretty late tonight, so I'm just going to jump in. I promised last week that I'll deliver a live on how to make promises to yourself. And you're probably thinking, why is that important? I would say that this is ongoing work. It's not a one and done thing. It's how you can build on your internal self-worth and self-esteem and a place to look so that you start to develop your powers of confidence and growing sense of freedom. So, as you know, one of the things I do is coach women, and I like to think that my lives give some empowerment to consider what is available to you if you are following me and interested in the things and the topics I talk about around happiness, wellness and mental fitness, because ultimately you and only you are responsible for everything that happens in your life. And if you really want to make changes in your life, then following me is an option alongside discovering for yourself through your own insights, experiences and the outcomes you're getting, results, to see that you're not fixed. There is possibility of doing things differently so that you get the outcomes that are more aligned with the person you are rather than what you may have been told or programmed into thinking that's available for you. So, like I said, this live is about how you can make promises to yourself, because how you treat yourself impacts your identity. It's really key that you understand this and take on board what I'm sharing if you are interested in making changes and you don't know where to start, because it can be overwhelming. And if you're determined to go it alone, and that's okay, maybe it's a case of you don't know where to start, so it's preventing you from taking any sort of action. So you, in other words, are just doing what you've always done. It's comfortable, and it feels safe, but it could also be keeping you stuck. And believe me, time passes quickly and it will go on with or without you, and before you know it, you could have lost a number of years still participating in things that are not really for you. So I want you to think about how making promises to yourself is like writing a future love note to self. Because as I said, especially with what I understand is some of the work in rebuilding your authentic stuff, so you're doing the things and you're focused on what matters, what's important, some of the challenges of that is we're often operating in ways that are not getting us what we want. If anything, we're too focused on the things we don't want. And because of that, and I'll repeat something I've said on previous lives, what you focus on grows, and it's very true. And what I can share in the work I do on myself when I'm not working with clients, coaching, or do the other things that I have going on, that the more I see for myself where my attention and intention is placed, I've also correlated and can track back to thinking patterns and also beliefs that are causing certain coping mechanisms. And it's really important that I make a distinction here. We're all coping, so it's the degree we're coping. So to accept that we can develop for ourselves healthier coping mechanisms so that we start to move towards the things we want and away from stop the things that are impacting our wellness, happiness and wellness. So I apologise if I've gone off at a tangent, but the reason why I say that is some people, I know this was me not so long ago, probably 8 years ago, might be keen to take action without being fully aware of how their identity or their past has impacted their point of view and decision making. It's really important that you consider it for yourself if that's true for you, which is why I mentioned what I mentioned. You could be doing things because it feels safe, it feels comfortable, but in actual fact you're stuck. So if this live resonates with you, I hope you'll stay with me on this. So I'm helping to see why it would be worth taking some time out for yourself. It doesn't need to take long, but to honour yourself and visualise a future goal, something you're interested in undertaking, and to find new ways of getting there. And I don't know what that looks like for you, but a possibility could be changing careers. It could be starting a new business, maybe returning to a hobby from childhood. It could also look like trying to discover, trying to experience something that you haven't experienced before. And I would encourage you to start small and take small or tiny actions towards that thing when you identified what that is, so that you can start to perhaps re-engineer, take a step back, what that might look like for you. So it could also be, if you're interested in, because it's a skiing season now, so if you were interested in going skiing, if you were to reverse engineer, I don't know whether it's something I would be interested in, but what I can do is maybe go see if there's any friends that are interested, or a friend that's interested in going skiing. Maybe look at booking some time on one of those ski slopes if so you don't actually fly out for the weekend or do that. And maybe just go on one of those dry ski slopes and have a lesson, something like that. And it could be perhaps low investment, so you can hire everything that you need there, and see what happens before committing to a number of lessons, and then maybe organising a trip. You would identify what would be the best place for you to go within your budget, make it a weekend break. That's just sort of like throwing off the cuff an example. I know I said making a small decision, but that small decision might be, a tiny step is, seeing what dry slopes are near you, and maybe just going and watching for an afternoon or a few hours and seeing how other people are perhaps indulging in skiing to see if it's for you. So that's a tiny step with a bit of investment, but low investment, if that makes sense. So I'm going to move on. So as I said, if making promises to yourself is a way of building up self-esteem, self-love. So a place to look, because I mentioned visualise a goal that you would like to achieve, and find new ways of getting there. I'll give you a quick example of the calf. But maybe make a note of the suggestions here I have. Write down what you would like to experience, and then pick one thing you can work on now. Consider what might get in the way of that experiencing taking action. It is important to see what could block you so that you can find ways around, or to cut it out completely, because it's not always what we considering what you want, it's also considering what could get in the way. And it could be even something like, I don't think I can do it. And it will probably, if you pay attention to how you talk to yourself, it could be that your self, I'm trying to look, I can't. But basically, you're counting yourself out. You're already saying to yourself, I can't do it. So you're blocking yourself. So acknowledge, it's a fear. Why is that relevant? Okay, so how do I get around that fear? Can I enlist the support of a friend? Can I think about perhaps, if it's financial, can I find ways where I save money somehow, so I review my costs? Is there something I can cut out, Carl, and budget towards this thing that I want to experience, taking action if that's the blocker? What else? There could be any number of things, but what I'm encouraging you to think about is what could get in the way so that you can actually take action in eliminating it. What are the best outcomes of completing these actions? If, again, going back to skiing, so what would be the best outcomes if I went skiing? It could be that I really enjoy it. I find a new way of keeping fit, because my understanding, I know it's something that I would like to experience. I haven't gotten around to it yet. My best outcome would be I would go out on a trip, because I love travelling. I love experiences. I love being out in the great outdoors. I love being in nature. I know skiing is not particularly lending itself to that, but it's still out, still outside. Fresh, clean air. I love Switzerland. I have been a couple of times. Haven't been to the Alps. That would be something I would like to experience because I love travel. Like I said, I love experiencing new things. The best outcome for me is at least I've given it a shot. I can see whether it's for me or not. And that's okay, whether it's not, but it would be a build-up to the possibility that maybe even in my late 50s, I can become a skier. So, and then you can plan the way, plan what actions you can take. So I've given you an example around skiing, probably not the best example, but hopefully you're getting what I mean. So in all of that, really think about what are the things that energize you, that you find engaging, authentic, who you are, away from who others or what others, or away from what you've been told is available to you, because we have all been subject to a level of conditioning, programming and societal expectations that has us in places and spaces that actually not for us. And this is hard to spot if you're not aware and not unconscious of how these programming, conditioning and expectations have shaped the decisions we make in the here we make. Because all there is the here and now, and the more you develop your awareness and along with it your consciousness, so that you start to interrupt ways of being or ways of operating your states that are not actually what you want, moving you in the direction of what is more desirable, but because it's comfortable, we find it hard to change. And part of that is being on autopilot. I've mentioned this on previous lives. And if you're not aware, you can't change what you're not aware of. So if you start to consciously think about the things that you enjoy, find engaging, that you would like to experience, you're more likely to put a stop to the things that are habitual, perhaps not serving you, could be seen as unhealthy or copes, and redirect that energy into something more meaningful, fulfilling, and will give you the sense of agency and sovereignty over your life, which is a bigger piece. So a question to ask yourself, another question is, what tasks and activities give me the most joy or energy? So I'll say it again, what tasks and activities give me the most joy and energy? So that's something to think about there. Another consideration is to root out or minimise the things you're good at but you do not actually enjoy. What might that look like? So there's a number of things I'm good at, but just because I'm good at it doesn't mean that I enjoy it. So you have a strength, there's something that you could do without thinking about. And again, this lends itself to what I'm talking about, the autopilot. you just do it because it's comfortable, but just because it's comfortable makes you stuck. So I'm trying to think of an example live, something I'm good at that I don't actually do not actually enjoy. I'm going to come back to that. Hopefully I'll come back to this. Because at the moment my brain late at night can't find a good example. But maybe a question, another way of looking at it is, what are the benefits of using my strengths more? So if you're aware of what your strengths are, and hopefully you are aware of your strengths, it's okay if you don't, if you never spent time thinking about it. This is the invitation to do so. Just write down, like one of mine is dancing. I know I love dancing. I've tried out other forms of dance just because I'm not necessarily as good, like whacking, for example. It doesn't stop me participating because it still gives me energy, it still gives me joy, and also gives me a sense of community because there's WhatsApp group that I participate in from time to time. It's a nice community. I see other individuals that I participate with in the activity outside of when we're having classes. So when I started to revisit childhood passions and hobbies, I was perhaps going every once in a while. Now I schedule permitting go every week when I can, sometimes twice a week, and I get a lot of pleasure of that. Maybe something else is energising. I'm going to go back to this point. Energising authentic. When I learned to become a ride leader, cycle ride leader, it played to a strength. I do believe I enjoy empowering others. It's one of the reasons why I became a coach. It took some time to develop the skill set to become a ride leader, and I did so by doing, participating in courses, in trainings, gaining certification, and I developed those skills. So the strength I have is I can, because I've had a number of setbacks, so I'm pretty resilient, so I don't give up so easily. I'm resilient. That is a strength of mine. So by using it more and accepting it, I needed to exercise patience in cultivating the skills of what was required to be a ride leader and to lead others on rides and to do so on my own. I was able to offer myself empathy for the times when I found it difficult, and with the support of the community, of the charity that I also volunteer for and give my time to, I was able to lean into the other aspects, like going out for rides with other ladies, women, communities, going into schools, etc. So hopefully, again, it's encouragement how you make small promises to yourself and to develop a plan on how you're going to get there, and look at minimizing the things you're not so good at. Like, I would say, now that I think of it, marketing, I loved marketing. I'm very good at it. But the reality is things have moved on. I no longer enjoy it in the same way that I used to. And when I was honest about that it didn't energise me in the same ways that it used to when I first started out 20 years ago, I was able to lovingly redirect that energy, time and attention to other things, like my coaching practice, learning new things, because there's other courses that I'm doing, participating at the moment. And I gave up something to make that happen for me, and that also meant changing what kind of work or contracts I was undertaking, so that the time I would have spent on applications for things I wasn't good at but wasn't interested in, and moving away from, and it was a promise myself to stop doing things that I no longer enjoy, wasn't giving me value, wasn't serving me. It was a conscious decision to say, okay, this is not for me anymore. This is what's for me, and work on those things. So hopefully I haven't gone too off track. So hopefully I've answered that question. I've circled back to that. So it's working on those beliefs and behaviours that will ultimately give you the confidence. And when you start small, tiny, and build, you will start to shift what needs to be shifted so that you can indulge yourself, give yourself that permission, because nobody else is going to give it to you. Hopefully I haven't been covering over the mic. Nobody, believe it or not, no one else is going to give it to you, so that you validate yourself in ways that will give you more of a sense of self, more of a sense of your being who you are, which is so key, because I can't say it enough. A lot of what I talk about is, in actual fact, energy management. And one of the hardest lessons to learn was, in my case, how much I was expending my energy on things that weren't serving me, and how much I was losing my precious vitality, energy, time, energy, resources on what didn't, and not understanding how that was impacting on my outcomes and results. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't always consider how much we're acting from our past, or how we perceive things. So, what are the benefits, Karen? Your 3 times more likely to have a better quality of life if you start to build up your belief systems. And I'm suggesting how you do that is start to make small promises to yourself. So you build up your capacity to act in the ways necessary to reach your specific goals. And I've shared an earlier example where I gave myself permission to be patient and to have compassion of self, because I was learning things new. It wasn't comfortable, it felt uncomfortable, but I stuck with it because I ultimately knew I couldn't continue the way I had been because it wasn't making me happy. It was draining my energy, it was draining my resources, and also I was directing it on things that really didn't matter. It may have been serving other people, places, things, but it wasn't serving me. So I had to let it be okay to invest energy and time into things that I was hopeful about, because it's a great way of focusing on what you want to achieve, because you do have control over your time, energy, attention and intention, which is your resources. And the one thing you will never get back is time. Take it from somebody that knows, that has wasted a lot of time on certain things, and it's taken me some time to overcome the fact that time cannot be recouped. However, that said, it's never too late to make changes, and it is scary, which is why I always invite people into a consultation with me if they're unsure and want a sounding board, and seeing if working with me would be of benefit for them. Because there's some things we can do alone and should do alone, but there's some things we can't, because we also have things that we're not aware of, we're not conscious of, that are playing out. And when you talk it out, and you're talking it out with somebody professional and impartial to help you see that you might have a way, it's sort of like a faulty way of looking at whatever you're looking at, because I can only speak for myself, but when you do the work on yourself, and it's not a one and done, it's ongoing, you start to see, okay, I can see how I've been making decisions from this position, but in actual fact, now that the way I see things have changed, my outcomes, my results have changed with it, because it's no longer from a faulty programming, faulty worrying that shouldn't have been there. It's just, I just didn't know it was there, so it was time to delete the program, debug, so to speak. Maybe something for a different conversation. So I'm going to wrap up now. So what does that look like? What does that look like? Give yourself permission. Maybe a place to start is to make decisions without approval. Make decisions without approval. And what I mean by that is stop seeking outside input. Sometimes it's relevant and it's appropriate, don't get me wrong, but other times it isn't. Because I can remember when I made the decision to move to Scotland, I actually had a lot of resistance. I was taken aback. I falsely thought I would get a lot of support, but actually it was quite the opposite, and I found that interesting. And that was a big decision. I get it. It was scary for some people, but it was my life, my decision. I understand that not everybody's going to see things the way I do, but they don't have to either. And it was an important lesson for me to learn there without going into it too much. Start saying no without explanation. I have no problems now saying no, that's not for me. It's no longer, especially when it's no longer aligned with what I want to achieve, what's of interest to me, what I value. Too often I see people imposing their will on others, to a degree manipulative, I would argue, not necessarily, it's meeting other people's needs at the expense of your own. Always start to look at that side of the coin. Sometimes we say yes because you want to please other people, you want to make them happy, but are you making them happy? Because if you aren't happy about the decision you're making, really take a step back and really take a look at that, because it could be that one of your self-sabotaging, your method of coping is to people please. Setting boundaries without guilt, and this also takes time. Give yourself permission to sort of, as I mentioned, there could be things you're good at but you don't enjoy doing. So you could be that you've got a responsibility, but do you have to be the person to do it? And of course there will be some negotiating. If, for example, you're a parent, you've got responsibility in that respect. So that might be that you need to negotiate with your partner. That's probably not the example in respect to setting a boundary without guilt. But often when we set boundaries with others and say, for example, I sometimes experience calls late at night and I do not understand why, or texts, I do not respond to them now. I used to, because I can remember I used to have somebody I know used to call me at 2-3 o'clock in the morning and I'll be asleep, and because I was concerned about them I would pick up. No, I don't have people like that in my life anymore. And so that stopped happening, but I still do on occasion get late night texts and I just don't respond, or people that think they still got access to me in actual fact don't, and I just don't respond at all. And I don't feel guilty about it. Is that a boundary? Well, you teach people how to treat you. So if I continue to respond to late night messages, I'm teaching them that that's okay, when in actual fact it's not. And that's that. I've also spoken up about how I've had an instance where I had a lot of conflict last year with a boundary, because people, and I would expect this, people sometimes don't like boundaries. They will say to you, on one hand they understand, but also push back when it affects them because they're more concerned about meeting their needs and they're not entirely bothered whether it's at your expense. And when I learned that, I started to push back more, and I don't have any guilt about it either, because if it's okay for you to have your needs met as somebody else and not understand how that creates anger and resentment, and then make yourself out to be some sort of victim in the consequences of that, I'm sorry to tell you, in what's happening now is as people learn healthier coping mechanisms, they're also setting boundaries with others, and they will also see, because I do participate in a lot of conversations, particularly with the clients that I work with, where they actually see for themselves that it was necessary to uphold the boundary and to be comfortable with pushback, even if it does end up in consequences where you stop talking to the person concerned, or you stop participating in the thing or the environment where that's created. And because you are ultimately responsible for you, and you're freeing up your time, energy, your resources, your attention, intention, because what you focus on is so important. You will get a better quality of life because you're spending it on the things that matter. I can't stress that enough. So, okay, I've done that now. I've made good on my promise. It was over a week late. I'll try and see if I can fit in another one this week to make up for last week. I'm not going to make any excuses. I just wasn't inspired to do this live up until now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please do like, comment and share if you watch this live. Also, let me know if you've got any questions, concerns, if, buts and maybes. Is there anything I missed? Let me know in the comments, or maybe send me a DM. If you're interested in a consultation to see how we can work together, there should be a link either in the bio or on the post itself. Also, please follow me on YouTube if you haven't already done so.